I need to get this out. Maybe someone will read it, maybe someone will understand. If nothing else, maybe there'll be some trace of me left when it's over. My name is David Harris, I'm 45, and 6 months ago, my life was as steady as a worn-out clock. Predictable, unremarkable, but stable. I worked at a manufacturing plant in Ohio, hard, grueling labor that left my body aching but kept the lights on. After Mom passed, I moved back in with my dad to help with the medical bills her illness left behind. It wasn't glamorous, but it was home. We weren't rich, not even close, but we managed. Then one day, everything fell apart. The plant shut down without warning. No rumors, no whispers, no signs. Just a curt announcement from the foreman as we clocked in. Operations are ceasing effective immediately. Pack your things. That was it. Years of sweat and loyalty reduced to a handful of cold, impersonal words. At first, I told myself I'd bounce back. I wasn't afraid of work. I'd done it all before. Janitor, mover, security guard, anything to scrape by. Surely I'd find something. But interview after interview, I hit a wall. Overqualified, underqualified, or just another face in a sea of desperate applicants. The savings I'd clung to drained faster than I thought possible. First, it was small sacrifices. No takeout, no new clothes. Then bigger ones, skipping meals, rationing heat. I did everything to make sure Dad's medications stayed at the top of the list. But with every passing day, the bills piled higher. The shame of it, the weight of helplessness, it started to suffocate me. Pride became a luxury I could no longer afford. What little hope I had left was fading, swallowed whole by desperation. That's when I saw the ad. A glimmer of salvation, or so I thought. Then one night, scrolling through job listings, I saw it. Night supervisor needed, Quiet Hollow Inn, $60 per hour, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. No experience necessary, immediate start. $60 an hour? It sounded absurd. Too good to be true. But desperation clouds judgment. I dialed the number. A calm, professional voice answered. Quiet Hollow Inn, you're calling about the position? Yes, I replied, my voice cracking slightly. Come in tonight, the voice said, as if my application had already been accepted. 11 p.m. sharp, bring yourself, that's all. The line went dead before I could ask anything else. The inn was buried deep in the woods, far off any main road. The drive itself was unnerving. The twisting path grew narrower, the trees thicker, until I felt completely enveloped by darkness. When I finally saw the faint glow of the inn's neon sign, relief was short-lived. The sign blinked erratically. Quiet Hollow Inn, vacancy. The building looked old and forgotten. The siding was warped, and the windows were covered in dirt, blocking the light inside. The air was damp, with a strange smell of earth and rot. When I stepped inside the office, the feeling grew heavier. The air was thick with the musty scent of mildew mixed with old cigarette smoke. Behind the counter stood a man, tall, thin, and strangely calm. His eyes were sharp, too sharp, almost as if he wasn't looking at me, but through me. I felt a chill run down my spine, like he could see something hidden, something I didn't want him to see. The room seemed to close in around me, and for a moment, I wondered if I had made a mistake coming here, but it was too late now. You're here for the job, he said, not as a question, but as a statement. Yeah, I managed to reply. David Harris. At the sound of my name, his head tilted ever so slightly, a motion so subtle it might have been my imagination. You sure you're ready for this? I need the money, I stammered. He smirked faintly. 60 an hour, cash. Follow the rules and you'll do just fine. What rules? I asked, my voice thick with unease. Without answering, he reached beneath the counter and handed me a single sheet of paper. The edges were frayed, and the text looked like it had been typed decades ago on an old machine. Memorize these. Don't write them down. Don't share them. Break a rule, and it's your problem, not mine. Understand? His tone brooked no argument. My stomach churned, but I nodded. Good, he said. Your shift starts now. He disappeared into a back room, leaving me alone in the suffocating stillness of the office. I walked out to my car and unfolded the sheet under the dim dome light. The words stared back at me, chilling in their simplicity. Rules for the night shift at Quiet Hollow Inn. 1. At 11:20 p.m., turn off the neon sign. If it flickers before then, ignore it. 2. Room 7 is locked. It stays locked. Don't open it for anyone. 3. At 3:03 a.m., the phone will ring. Answer it, but don't speak. Hang up after 5 knocks. 4. Stay out of the storage room after midnight. no matter what you hear. 5. If a guest with glowing eyes asks for room 17, give them the key without making eye contact. 6. If you see a shadow cross the parking lot, check the guest log immediately. If there's an unsigned entry, burn it. 7. At 4:44 a.m., lock yourself in the bathroom for exactly 2 minutes. Ignore the whispers. My gut screamed at me to leave, but my wallet argued louder. $60 an hour. Cash. Immediate relief for my dad's medical expenses. At 11:20 p.m., I switched off the neon sign. The parking lot plunged into darkness, and the shadows outside the windows seemed to grow deeper, pressing in around me. The quiet felt heavy, as if the night itself was waiting for something or someone. The first hour crawled by, the silence punctuated only by the creaks of the old building settling. I found myself jumping at every sound, hyper-aware of the faint ticking of the wall clock. At 3:03 a.m., the phone rang. The sharp ring of the phone broke the silence, making my heart jump. I reached for the receiver with shaking hands, struggling to steady myself. When I finally pressed it to my ear, all I could hear was a loud buzzing static. It crackled for a moment, then faint whispers started. They were soft, too soft to make out, but they were there. Almost like they were coming from far away, or from inside my own head. The words didn't make sense, but the feeling behind them did. There was something wrong with them, something dark and menacing. I felt a chill run through me, my skin prickling as if I wasn't alone anymore. The whispers grew louder, closer, and I had to fight the urge to hang up, my breath growing shallow. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, and I wasn't sure I wanted to hear what came next. Then came the knocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I slammed the receiver down, my pulse hammering into my ear. The office felt colder, and for a brief moment I swore I heard distant laughter, soft, mocking, and inhuman. It was 4:30 a.m. when I first saw it. At first I thought it was a trick of the light, maybe just the way the shadow stretched across the parking lot. But no, this was different. The shadow was far too long, stretching out like it was moving on its own, and its shape was wrong, unnatural. I tried to focus, but it didn't make sense. There was no car, no person, no light source. It was like the shadow had no origin, moving as if cast by something invisible. I froze for a moment, my mind racing. Was this just my tired eyes playing tricks on me, or was something out there? The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and my breath hitched. I grabbed the guest log and started flipping through the pages, my hands cold and shaky. When I got to the last page, I stopped. My heart sank. There it was, an empty line where a guest should have signed in. No name, no room number, just an empty blank space. I stared at it for a long moment, trying to make sense of it, but I couldn't. I could feel the chill creeping up my spine, and a sick feeling settled in my gut. The rules I had read earlier flashed through my mind. I didn't hesitate. My hands shook as I fumbled around in the drawer for a match. I quickly lit it and held it to the corner of the page. The flame danced briefly, then began to eat at the paper. The page burned unnaturally fast, as if it didn't want to be seen, consumed by the fire with a ferocity that surprised me. I watched the fire reach the edge of the page, but then I heard it. A faint, anguished scream. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. It was so close, like it was coming from right outside the door. My skin crawled. The scream wasn't something I could ignore. I nearly dropped the match as my whole body went tense with fear. The flames devoured the paper, and I couldn't tear my eyes away from it. When the last of the paper turned to ash, the scream faded into nothing, but the feeling of dread stayed, heavy in the pit of my stomach. My mind raced. What had I just done? What had I unleashed? I glanced at the clock. It was 4:44 a.m. The rules echoed in my mind again. Lock yourself in the bathroom. Without a second thought, I did as I was told. My body moved on its own. My feet carried me across the room, and I locked myself in the bathroom. The door clicked shut behind me, and the moment it did, I heard them. The whispers. At first they were faint, so quiet I wasn't sure if I had heard them at all. But they grew louder, and soon they weren't just whispers in the air. They felt like they were closing in on me, surrounding me, pressing against the door. David, it was a voice I hadn't heard in years. My mother's voice. David, open the door. It's me. I felt a lump form in my throat and tears welled up in my eyes. I knew it wasn't her, but it didn't matter. My body didn't care. The whispers grew angrier. "Open the door, David." The doorknob rattled, shaking violently, as if someone was trying to get in. I pressed my back to the cold tile wall, my breath catching in my throat. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. All I could do was stand there and listen to the whispers. They were inside my head now. I could feel them crawling into my thoughts. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to breathe, to hold it together. I counted the seconds, each one dragging by like hours. 2 minutes. It felt like a lifetime. And then, just as suddenly as they had started, the whispers stopped. I didn't waste any time. My hands trembled as I unlocked the bathroom door and stepped out into the hallway. It was empty. No one was there. But the air, it was thick, heavy, like something was still lingering in the room, watching me. I had done everything the rules said. I followed every instruction to the letter. But I still felt it, the feeling of being watched. Something was waiting. I couldn't shake it. The first light of dawn filtered through the trees outside, casting a pale glow over the parking lot. I stumbled into the office chair, my body feeling like lead. I had been awake for hours, my nerves stretched to the breaking point. But even with the light of day creeping in, I couldn't relax. I couldn't let my guard down. That's when he walked in, the man who had hired me. He was calm, collected, like nothing had happened. "You followed the rules," he said. His tone was almost approving, like he was impressed. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to scream at him, to demand answers. But all I could do was stare. His eyes, those cold eyes, seemed to look straight through me. They didn't blink. I swallowed hard. "What happens if someone breaks a rule?" I finally managed to ask. His smile didn't reach his eyes. It was small, cold. "You don't want to know." My blood ran cold, but before I could ask anything more, he slid a thick envelope across the counter. I heard the bills inside crinkle as they settled on the wood. The envelope was heavy, and for a moment I just stared at it. "See you tonight?" he asked, his voice too casual. I glanced at the money. My heart pounded in my chest, and a wave of panic washed over me. I wanted to run. I wanted to get as far away from this place as I could, but I couldn't. My dad still needed his medication, and the bills were piling up. I had no other choice. "Yeah," I whispered. "See you tonight." The man's smile lingered as he turned to leave. He didn't look back, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. It wasn't just the fear. It was a feeling that someone was waiting. As the door clicked shut behind him, one question gnawed at my mind. What happens if I break the rules? I tried to push the thought away, but it wouldn't leave me. I couldn't get it out of my head. Driving home, I was still shaken. My mind raced, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Was it just some kind of twisted game? Or had I really just signed myself up for something far worse? My phone buzzed. I looked down at the screen. It was a text from an unknown number. "Well done, David. We'll be waiting." My blood ran cold. I stared at the words, my heart skipping a beat. My hands trembled as I set the phone down. Whatever was waiting for me, it wasn't human. And there was no way out.